Hi, friend.
Hi, friend. Are you ready
Ready for what?
to level up?
Okay, girl, let's get started. Hi, friends. Welcome to another episode of Level Up with Raman and Alysha.
On today's episode, Alicia and I might get a little passionate with us being women and being advocates of women. It's a little heartbreaking for us to hear what's happening with the abortion laws in Texas. So we want to talk about it and we want to talk about women's rights.
Yeah, definitely. I know it's been trending on social media, and that's kind of like the number one stop to bring awareness to all the generations out there. And then it's also been on the news. As women, and if you have been following us for a very long time, then you know we are very passionate feminists, and this is something we don't obviously agree with what Texas is doing to other females out there.
Yeah, absolutely. So, for those of you who have not heard, Texas has passed on a new law that says that you cannot get an abortion over how many weeks is it? Six
Um,
weeks?
yeah, six
Six,
weeks.
6 weeks, which is, as a male, you might be listening and be like, "Oh, 6 weeks, okay." But let us explain how basically they calculate the date and how your period works. So, say for example, you had your last period for 4 weeks, no, 6 weeks ago, right? Let's just say, and now you missed your period, and you check, and you're actually only pregnant 2 weeks. The way the doctor calculates how long you're pregnant is according to your last period date. So when your period last ended. So you could actually only be pregnant for 2 weeks, but the way they're going to calculate it is according to your last period end date. So, which means if your last period has been more than 4 or 5 weeks ago, then you're cutting really close, and it doesn't even give women enough. It's just the dates, I think, is what I think makes people the most upset, because it just doesn't make sense. By the time a woman would even know she's pregnant, it might be too late. Like, women do not get regular periods. So women might not get period every 30 days. Some people get them, further along. So the timing just doesn't make sense, because how can you expect women to have enough time to make a decision for themselves? Like, let's, I think the most baffling thing is, like, you have a bunch of these men or this government, like, making a decision about what women should do with their bodies. And
Y-
go on.
I couldn't agree more with you. And like Remen said, by the time women do figure out they're pregnant, it's too late in this case scenario if it was in a situation where they can't either bring a child into the world for whatever the reason is. And I don't think any woman owes anyone an explanation or justification of what they want to do with their body. Let's not also forget that, yeah, it's men standing behind this and more so religion. So since when did we start to mix religion and politics together? When has this been okay that we are all going to adapt to the same religion and agree
Yeah.
that abortion is bad across the country or the state? Like, that is not okay. There's so many different reasons that women might want to abort in a baby. For those of you listening, you may not be aware, but one of the biggest two reasons that a lot of the women out there are fighting for is that rape is so common today, which is so sad as I'm saying these
Mhm.
words come out of my mouth. But it is. Reality is we have perverted men that still are around that are raping women. We hear it in Canada, we hear it in Ontario, we hear it at universities, colleges, and even more so in the States. Like, look at half of these documentaries that came out on Netflix, like Ted Bundy. Like, are you
Mhm.
freaking kidding me? That all was like five, six different states at a time, and it was all college students. College students who aren't ready to have a fucking child, who are not financially secure, who have their whole like education to finish, who didn't even ask for that to be done to them. There was no consent or anything like that. Another thing is incest that's also been trending around. I didn't even know
Mhm.
this was a huge thing in our day of century, but I guess it does kind of make sense because raping also can occur in families.
Yep.
family abuse, right? So there's that as well. Now, what about women who have medical problems? If they are trying to conceive to have a baby, but a doctor says, well, we're at this point where we can tell that, if you carry this child to full term, you may die. And I've heard this story so many times with people who have type 2 diabetes.
Mm.
So there are so many reasons. So, like, then what? You're raising this child to then set up to fail in the sense that they won't have a mother figure in their life, or they'll have to live with that guilt for the rest of their life that my mother could have lived, but instead she gave me life.
Yeah, 100%. I don't understand that the people who are supposed to be responsible for others and supposed to be responsible for making good judgment, how they overlooked all these negative aspects of this. Like, how did they not actually, look further into it and see what actually the stats are? You're absolutely right. And as much as okay, so I don't know if you've been seeing these too, but obviously this topic is trending. So on Instagram or on TikTok, you'll see a lot of anti-abortion protesters. So they're around, and then you know what, I've seen a couple of videos and it's so interesting because some of the protesters are men. So the person holding the camera is like, you've never been pregnant, like how can you stand here and be protesting for women to not be allowed to get abortions when you cannot get pregnant, you cannot do this with your body. And then like there was one that I saw that this guy asked a woman and he's like, have you ever been pregnant? Like, do you have a child? And she's like, no. And he's like, why are you standing here? Like, why are you standing here and literally wasting? And I've said this before in our previous podcast, like people, okay, there's things to protest for, which are legitimate and time worthy. But then some people just have fucking too much time on their hand to be standing around protesting for something that has zero relevance to you. Like, as you mentioned, like, when did we start believing in you know, like religious facts to like back up why you don't believe in abortion and stuff like that. And yeah, you know what? People are entitled to their own opinions. That's okay. But why do people think they have the right to kind of like there's one thing having an opinion, but to able to have like control over what somebody else does. So you mentioned like, there's rape, there's incest, there's abuse, which is we do hear it. We see movies, but we also, it is the hard reality of it that it does happen. And you know what? Abortion is one way of a woman saying, like, no, I'm not going to have this child and I'm not going to go through this. And, if they do, then that might cause a lot more trauma. I feel like,
Yeah.
Alisa, that this law is sponsored by like Teen Mom, that show on MTV, because they're clearly trying to create a bunch of teen moms. You know what? Like, kids are stupid. We're like, teenagers are stupid. Like, they're having sex younger and younger, and you're not responsible at that age. You might not use protection and stuff like that. And yeah, you have accidents. And, at least you have options to make sure that one mistake doesn't turn out to be your whole life. I'm not saying a child is like a mistake, but, you
No.
know, not being ready for a child is an actual thing. Like, you don't have to have it at that stage in your life if you're not ready.
Yeah, no, and I couldn't agree more with you on that. That's funny about the teen mom.
I feel like they're sponsored by Teen Mom, man, because honestly, when I watch that show, all I see is like a bunch of 16-year-olds. Um, and you see like how the life they could have had. And then, okay, yeah, all those teen moms like obviously got famous, but the life that they could have had versus what they had to have at the age of 16. And it's like, what, you want a bunch of teen moms out
Ex
there?
It doesn't make sense. And it's almost as if to say that by putting this abortion ban, you're allowing these rapists to continue doing what they're doing. So it's like,
Yeah.
okay, we can now definitely get away with it because prior to that, if a woman had walked into a hospital being raped, there was those rape kits and they would
Mhm.
test for the sperm and whatever. And, scientifically then would link it to the person and it'll go into court.
Mhm.
Now, this poor woman will have to stay in court and fight for her life, but although she can't even eliminate
Get
the
an
issue that,
abortion.
yeah,
Yeah.
like how is that even fucking okay? So, I don't know if you saw this, Roman, but on social media, I was kind of impressed. So the Dallas Cowboys, like team, the woman team, the
Mhm.
cheerleaders. So if everyone knows, if you've been to an American sport, like I've been to many football and hockey and basketball, their girls on the US team are fly. They're very hot little things wearing short, short skirts and like really tight, tight tops, more so than the Canadian side. And even I'll be at a football game with my husband, and I'll be like, "Damn, she's hot." Like, they're hot,
Yeah.
right? So, they're known for wearing, provocative clothing, and that's what they get paid for, right? And that's why it's such a bigger market in the US.
Hmm.
Well, they walked out, for one of the first, I think, games or something about a few weeks ago, and the Handmaid's Tale show?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
You know how they wear those red capes with, like, kinda like a cone hat
Yeah.
that covers their face? Okay, well, the girls walked out in blue and white. So they wore the like, blue color, and then they wore the white caps to look just like the Handmaid's Tale.
Mm.
So fully clothed just to stand in unity with other women and say, like, why should we be this way when you're pulling us 1800 centuries ago to say that we don't have any rights?
Yeah, 100%. I think that's a great thing that they did. And it's true. And I think that's what people are most upset about too, that it's 2021. We have come so far to only go so back. Like, how does that make sense? How does our world supposed to advance? Like, it sucks because, people think of America as like this, dreamland and where, you grow and you prosper and it's like the land of dreams and the land of possibility, but it's like you look at America now and you're just like, fuck, there's so much fuckery happening here. Like, if I were like somebody and if someone was like, okay, do you want to move to Texas or whatever, I think I would like now question it, because now I'm questioning their government and I'm questioning everything about their judgment over there.
Yeah, definitely. And so I think it was one of the Texas governors who said that, our solution to this issue. So then, like the rape part kept coming up. And do you want to know what their solution is?
What?
His solution is to eliminate the rapists in society.
Okay, how the fuck are you gonna do that, dumbass?
Exactly. So we're putting the impossible with something that we need as a possible. Like, are you kidding me? And that's your justification? Like, that is not okay at all.
Absolutely not. Like, are you guaranteeing now that you are going to find every rapist out there, every criminal out there? There are still so many unsolved cases of missing people. And, human trafficking is like a crazy thing happening as well, that people don't think of how often that happens as well. Um, and if you were going to catch all the rapists, like, wouldn't you have done that by now? It's like 2021. You haven't been able to catch them this whole time. Like, what the fuck is going to make you think that you're going to start catching them now? Like, you have a special plan in place? Like, are you using some futuristic technology with some backward thinking? Like, what is happening?
Yeah, so okay, I want to read this to you guys, okay? So, New York Times said this, okay? So they're like asked on Tuesday why his state felt the need to force a rape or incest victim to carry a pregnancy to term. Abbott, who's the governor of Dallas, responded like only a person who really, really hates women can, claiming it doesn't require that at all. He added, because obviously it provides at least 6 weeks for a person to be able to get an abortion. So,
Oh
for
my.
one, it doesn't require that. That said, however, let's make something very clear. Rape is a crime, and Texas will work tirelessly to make sure that we eliminate all rapists from the streets of Texas by aggressively going out and arresting them and prosecuting them and
By
getting them off the
aggressively.
street. No, okay, but then if you're gonna release a statement like this, okay, like what a fucking fool. Two things I want to point out. First thing, yeah, you are a massage. What is it, Raman? Monogamous?
Misogynist?
Yes, that's what you are. You do hate women. The second thing I have to point out to all of this is then why are you not making pregnancy tests free
Yeah. Yeah.
or Plan
100%.
B? And
Yeah.
these things should be free in your state because if women need to figure out that if they're pregnant within those 6 weeks, well, guess what, buddy? Then they need to test themselves every other motherfucker day or every other third day to see if they're pregnant or not.
Yeah,
And
100%. Like the level of paranoia. Um, Guys, if you guys don't know, pregnancy tests are like on an average $20. They're
they're
not cheap.
expensive.
Yeah. And then you don't necessarily want to go just get it at Dollarama or dollar store, because what if it's like not, accurate enough? And then even those you might have to buy two, three just to make sure it's like validated. But absolutely, that's a like I just feel like everything is against women, which is the most fucked up part. It's that like I am my own person. If tomorrow, you know, we're so like blessed to be living in Canada and be living the life that we live, and already from what I know, abortion is already not free in the US. So women already are having to pay for it. And um now like the damage on women, so as I was reading, is that this is gonna do so much more damage to women. And it's like that's the key word here, everyone. Women. It's not doing any damage to men. It's doing damage to women.
Hmm.
This is gonna impact so many women in Texas, so many the way it's gonna affect their health, you know, it's going to affect their mental state, it's going to affect so many different aspects that might, like, it's going to end up ruining their life is what basically this article was like leading up to, that like you're basically creating, putting women in a situation intentionally, that you know that you're going to be ruining several women's lives. And you're right, it's just like a motherfucker that fucking hates women. Because why couldn't you say fucking 12 weeks, which is like
Yeah.
90% of women get an abortion within the first 12 weeks? Why couldn't you say 12 weeks? Why 6 weeks? Why put women in a situation when you know they don't have a lot of control over it? And there's just, I feel bad for women there,
Yeah. I
you
couldn't
know?
agree more. Yeah.
And also, the most fucked up part is now I feel like, and this is where I agree with you even more here, that I feel like they just, someone out there just hates women. Like, who broke your heart? Like, I have no idea. But some woman fucked over this guy, and he's like, I'm going to fuck over every woman. The whole lawsuit aspect of it. So now, if okay, this this is government snitching to like the ultimate max. So you can, if you know somebody, and it could be your friend, right? If
Hmm.
you know somebody, say like they, found a way to get an abortion over 6 weeks, because I'm pretty sure there will still be like those underground clinics kind of thing, which is unfortunate because now clinics are going to be forced to do like sketchier shit, I feel, right?
Hmm.
If you find out that somebody did get an abortion over 6 weeks, you can file a lawsuit to get $10,000. Now, which fucking greedy fucking person in America is not going to fucking want the $10,000? So it's literally like a plan to snitch people out. You can sue a clinic, you can do it against a person. You can, it's basically like a way of, I guess, their way of catching clinics who are still doing abortions over 6 weeks. But I just think it's a big fat like snitch fest. Like they're like
Yeah.
literally willing to give people money um to make sure that this doesn't operate anymore.
100%. And, it's sad because, okay, so the problem with the States is that, like, sometimes I do think Canada is too lenient, but then I feel like there's a reason why we are too, right? And I think we're like that peace country because we're the melting pot and everything else.
Mhm.
And then in the States, you always hear that anyone can sue anyone over anything. So
Yeah.
now we're adding this to the books as well. So now this poor, let's imagine we have a teenager who got knocked up for whatever reason, is paying her college tuition, and now is going to be sued because she had to make a choice for her future, which
Yeah.
once again will now be spotted all over social media, all over the world to see. And let's talk about depression. Let's talk about mental illness,
Mhm.
the things that will cause this poor individual to go through such a whirlwind of emotions of, did I make the right decision? I'm sure when anyone is about to have an abortion, it's not something they actually want to do. It's something they
Yeah.
may have to do. And for whatever the reason is, once again, no one needs to give a reason. But I don't think anyone is okay after they have to do that or make that decision. And usually, like we've seen in movies and TV shows and stories I've heard, women have nightmare after nightmare for months after giving an abortion. Plus, it's something sucking right out of their body. And if
Mhm.
you're like Raman and I, we are so fearful of karma. Can you imagine the shit that would go through our heads if we were in that like predicament? So now we're
Yeah.
gonna make it even worse by the fact that you have to now go figure out a way how to do this illegally. And now, you have the potential like fraud part of where you might get charged and then also
Yeah.
be like blasted to the whole world that your parents might find out. Who wants all of this?
Nobody, fucking nobody. It's just, if honestly, if I was a woman in Texas, I'd be like, okay, I'm ready to move out.
Okay, and then Roman, this is my other thing as a woman in Texas. The people that are sitting on this council, who, are you telling me it's just men sitting on this council that agreed on this bill? Why
You
the
know what?
fuck?
I tried to find that. I did try to locate like how many of that council was men versus women.
Hmm.
And I could not find an exact count, which was unfortunate. But even like as soon as this happened, the UN spoke about it. Women organizations spoke about it. So many organizations like were like, is this crazy? This doesn't even make sense. This goes against literally freedom of, not freedom of speech, but like freedom to act on your own body, freedom for yourself. You're literally taking freedom away from women. Um, and what you just mentioned, like, there's that whole aspect of depression. And now you're causing a bunch of people who had never had any intentions to get pregnant. And now you're basically like, okay, well, this is a choice that you have to make. And um, what is that guy? That guy that you love from that show? That's like an advocate for women and men.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, but what's from that show? What's that show
Rafi. I
called?
know his show name,
Yeah,
Raphael.
yeah, yeah.
Justin,
Raphael.
Justin, Justin. That's
So
his real name.
Raphael from
Jane the
that
Virgin.
Jane the Virgin. So I just actually found a video of him on TikTok, and he was like, he's also such an advocate for men and women, and I think he's so amazing. He was talking about like, women have to do all these things, and a vasectomy is actually it's reversible. It's painful, but it is reversible. So a man could get a vasectomy, and then should he choose to be like, okay, well now we're ready to have children, he can reverse that vasectomy, and a woman in that case will never have to deal with getting pregnant, unknowingly having to go through an abortion or having to take birth control or any of those cases, right? So it's so crazy because he's like, you know what? Women have to take birth control. Women have to do this. Women have to do this. But nobody talks about that. Actually, men have an option too. They just choose to not take it, and it's not part of the norm. The norm is that the woman goes on birth control. If the woman gets pregnant, then the woman has an abortion and stuff like that, where this other option, that the reversible vasectomy, is a complete decision. And he talks about all the benefits of it. And he's like, your woman doesn't have to inject hormones in herself every month. She doesn't have to go through all the, fearfulness. Like every woman knows this. Like, if your period's not on fucking time, your first thought is like, am I fucking pregnant? Even if you've been using a condom, you've been using everything for whatever reason, that is the first thing our mind jumps to. So there is always like that little like nervousness. So he talks about how men have these opportunities, but no one talks about it. And it's all basically left up to the woman. So if it's left up to the woman, why are we letting men be in charge of what we should do with our body?
100%. I couldn't agree more. I have to watch this TikTok video of him. It's so
Yeah, he's so
true.
great.
There's always a different, like, altercation for someone to take. So, speaking of women in power, Vice President Kamala Harris.
Kamala Harris, yeah.
Yeah. So, I'm like, did I say her name right? So basically, she's saying that she's going to ensure that, like, to defend the right to safe and legal abortion and to strengthen that right. But my thing is, as vice president and president sitting in that White House, how come you had no control over one of your states?
I don't know how the government works. Like, can a state just like literally create any law like this without getting it approved by the president?
Apparently, like if it gets an I think it's a certain amount of like signatures are needed on the bill, and if you have more
Yeah.
people in the favor of that bill, then yes, it can get approved. But something as huge as abortion, I feel like should have been relooked at.
Yeah, 100%. I think even though it's contrary to abortion, people see it as killing, abortion saves lives.
100% it saves lives. And
Yeah,
that's
and
what
yeah, sorry, go ahead.
and like it saves lives. And okay, can we just go back to the fact that hello, we've come so far in life from century to century for women to be able to work, to make their own money, to be their own business owners, to like there's just so much we've come so far to do that we are still being held when it comes to our bodies, that a man gets a say over what we decide to do with our bodies. How is this
Mhm.
okay in 2021?
I don't understand. Like, I just feel like there's some dumbass old people on the board and they're just making dumbass decisions. Like, I feel like these government people, like, people should be questioning them at this point. I'd be like, are you part of the mafia? Like, who the, like, you aren't you supposed to be helping people, like making the better judgment of people? But so this, if you're an anti-abortion person listening to this, then you might not like this at all. But the whole fact of that abortion saves lives. I know that there's, and what sucks about that whole suing thing is it's going to be the fucking anti-abortion protesters, the dumbasses that are like spending their day fucking standing around, um, you know, protesting against this, that are going to be doing those $10,000 lawsuits. They're looking for opportunity, and those are the ones that are going to get that opportunity because they're freaking clearly have too much time on their hands. But back to this, abortion saves life comment. There's okay, so basically the bill is called, what is it called, I think it's called like the heartbeat bill. I don't know, is it called a bill? I have no idea. But the law basically follows this heartbeat bill, which is basically, they're like, it's the fetus is basically officially considered a baby as soon as there's a fetal heartbeat. So
Yeah, a
I that
so-called fetal heartbeat. Yeah.
yeah. So that's what they said, that, and that's what they used to determine the 6 weeks of pregnancy, because they were like, you can have it as early as 6 weeks, and that's what, whatever, fetal heartbeat. But so many medical professions are saying that you literally have no fetal heartbeat at 6 weeks. Like, you do not get a heartbeat that early on. So it just doesn't make sense. And I know people are not going to like hearing this, but like, it's just a fetus. Like, if it, we've talked about this, that miscarriage is very, common early on as well, because, you know, it has not developed into even much. Like, early pregnancy is barely a pregnancy. Like, your first 6 weeks, like, I would consider that's you're barely pregnant, basically. You can have a miscarriage at any point at that time. You can, um, I don't even know if you can, like, even I think, like, if you, in some places, they might even be like, if it's way too early on, like, say if you're like, okay, only 2 weeks pregnant, they might be like, okay, wait till 4 or something. But there's just that fetal heartbeat. It doesn't even have any supporting documents or supporting evidence. And medical professions are saying that it doesn't it doesn't stand by that. It's a very like vague, very like obsolete kind of rule, and it doesn't apply to everybody. So it's like, how can you make the statement across all women?
You know, and it's so true. And okay, so I'm sure you've seen this too, Raman, where now they're calling, if you're for you're for this law, you're technically a Texas Taliban. And now that brings me to
You're a
what's
fucking
happened.
Texas Taliban. I like
Yeah.
that. I like that.
Yeah, so I've been seeing that everywhere, and it's true because how is this any different than what's happening in Middle East? So we see what's happening in the Middle East, okay? And I don't know enough about it yet, but I do know that whatever they're doing is stripping women from all their rights. So everything they
Mhm.
worked hard to, I saw a few documentaries of some woman teachers speaking. They will not be allowed to be educated. They will not be allowed to go to school. Not be allowed to go out with by themselves or even go out at all or show any skin. Okay.
Yeah.
So this is happening in 2021 in the Middle East, third world country. Okay, I'm not saying it's okay, but it's a third world country. We're talking about America, first
Yeah.
world fucking country.
Yeah.
And you are, this all started because of religion. Let's be honest for a second. This is not because men hate women. Men want control and they go to church and they're using it as the excuse. If you're
Like, it's in
Christian
the
or
Bible
Catholic,
that it's like not right, whatever,
it's
whatever.
morally wrong. Exactly. And people are using it for that reason. And so, once again, why are we bringing religion into this? Like, I don't understand. My mind is boggled. We're still getting through a pandemic, right? At the same time, you're telling people to get fully vaccinated, you're telling people to insert something into their bodies And not everyone is for it. Like Raman and I are fully
Mhm.
vaxxed. I know we hesitated on getting vaccinated because it's something unknown and we didn't know enough information about it, but we knew that the only way get back to normalcy was to get this stupid vaccination. So everyone who got a vax obviously did not want it. Nobody wanted it. We just had to do what we had to do.
Mhm.
Meanwhile, you have this pandemic still alive and going and growing. Your numbers are one of the highest numbers in all of the world. You decide this is the time to bring out an abortion law and have protests across the
Right?
states?
I think they were
Like,
trying to sneak it in there, thinking nobody will notice.
I don't understand the logic. I don't
Yeah,
get these people. America, once again, you're a bunch of fucking idiots.
100%. I did want to mention something that I forgot to mention earlier on, that that something to consider is, and this is a real thing, not all rape is reported. There's
100.
actually There's actually more cases of rape that are not reported than there are reported, and that is like the harsh reality and the harsh truth. And a lot of those women have to kind of go and make their own decisions themselves without having to go report it, because that's a whole nother topic. But there's a lot of things that come with that. There comes shame, there comes opening up, there comes having to talk to somebody about it, or there's a lot that comes with it. And unfortunately, there are a lot of women who will not come out about it, and now those women are kind of stuck in situations. Also, 90% of women who go to the whole women's health clinics in Texas are already more than 6 weeks pregnant. So these are women coming for help, and that's 90% that are over 6 weeks. So you're telling me this law will only help the 10% and not the 90? This is
I
fucked up.
know. And now let's talk about all these people who are already in these clinics that have a career that might be paying their bills will now not have that anymore.
Yep, yep. A lot of clinics are going to go under. And the fear of someone snitching, because like this whole freaking snitch law now, um, they're going to be fearful. Like, is it worth getting a lawsuit?
You know, I wonder. I wonder if they think it is. Like, what do you do? At this point as a woman, what else choice do you have? And if you can take away our choice to have a baby or not, what's next?
Yeah, I don't know. I think us as women, the most we can do is bring light to it, make everybody aware. And everyone, me and Alicia do want to see online if there's some sort of like protest that we can sign, some sort of form that we can help and contribute our opinions as well. So we will find something if we do, and then we will post it on our podcast as well. So you can go ahead and put in your signature as well. Um, but we definitely, like, we need to make more people aware. And I think, to be honest, do you think that this law is gonna stick around? Like, do you think it's gonna stick? Because the amount of awareness and controversy and, um, you know, just conversations that are happening in the media about it, do you actually think it's gonna stick, or do you think it's gonna change?
You know, um, it's interesting you asked me that because I was going to ask you that. I do feel like it's not going to stick. But
Yeah.
I don't think it's not going to go away for a very long time because the unfortunate part is we have a lot of men in this like media, like Fox News. You have a lot of men reporting on the governor's side. You have a lot of men in media, and not a single man is standing up for us in that sense. If you look at a lot of these white dominant
Mhm.
Republicans in America, yes, I'm calling you out because you
Mhm.
are the problems. You guys are the ones who are sitting there and sitting and agreeing with everything that's happening. And I don't know if you know this, Roman, but I've been to Texas due to like for a job. I mean, for my
Mhm.
previous job, I used to travel and I went to Texas. And the
Yeah.
funny thing is, before I went to Texas, my regional manager who lives in New York actually had called me before I was leaving. He's like, listen, he goes, is this your first time in Texas? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, okay, I need you to like just be aware of your surroundings and just be careful. And then I'll meet you at the airport and I'll pick you up. And I was like,
Okay.
okay. And I told my husband, and he's like, yeah, because don't you know Texas is one of the most racist
It
countries
is.
and states in the world? And I was like, what? Like, I wasn't aware because I knew so many brown people that had moved there. And then my VP just recently told me a story. So I had henna on my hands, so she was relating to the henna part. And she was like, yeah, I used to work for this guy in Texas, and it was very high up in an organization that I went to a bridal shower here and I got mehndi on my hands. It was like one of my friends that was getting married. And I showed up there and she's like, I'm talking away, and he's like, actually, can we hold on for a second? And she's like, oh, okay. And he's like, I need to talk to you. And he made it seem so serious, like it was life threatening. And she was like, okay, sure. And she's like, what's going on? And he's like, how is everything? And she's like, it's fine. And he goes, no, like, what's on your hand?
Oh
And she's
my
like, oh,
God, the ignorance.
yeah. And she's like, oh, it's henna. Like, I went to a bridal shower. And he's like, how come you showed up here wearing that? Like, you should
Oh
have
my
never
God.
done that. And she was flabbergasted. She was like, what? And
Yeah.
can you imagine? Okay, there is us who are culturally, this is important to some of us. I don't care for Mendy, but I know there are women out there who do put on Mendy for all their events, whether it be 1 year
Mhm.
anniversary, whatever it may be. It doesn't matter. It's a
I'll be
form
that
of
person.
art. Yeah, you will be 100%, but it's also the form of art. It's not
Mhm.
just culture and tradition. It's a form of art for not just Indian people, but also Middle Eastern people. So what the fuck? And it's just like
Honestly,
you
I've
people
heard
are
that about
behind.
Texas too, that it's super racist. You don't really want to be like in the middle of the road in the dark by yourself. Everybody in Texas has a gun. So, like from young to older, like literally everybody has a gun. And yeah, they're super, super racist. And, there's just not any diversity there. There's no like cultural education about other cultures. It's very just prominently white, unfortunately, and very backwards. Like kind of, I don't want to say hillbilly, but hillbilly-ish. Like, Texas cowboy. Like, this is the only thing I fucking know. Like, white people. Like, hello, there are fucking other people in the world. Absolutely. So the United Nations, as soon as they heard this, their exact words were, this is gender-based discrimination at its worst, and it's structural sex and gender discrimination. So obviously, the only people affected by this, as we're mentioning, are women. And, we definitely need to stand by and do something about this. And as you mentioned, sorry, I don't know if you actually confirmed if you think that this will continue or not. Um, but I definitely think that they will have to change the number of weeks. I just think um, the amount of backlash that they're going to get, the amount of, exposure that this topic is getting, and the amount of people validating that 6 weeks is definitely not enough. It's unreasonable and it doesn't make sense. And you're putting women's health more at risk than ever before. Um, I don't think this law will stick for 6 weeks. I do hope it moves to a minimum of 12 weeks. I actually hope this law just gets banned, period. But, fucking the way Texas is going so far, I just don't see it happening. So even if it gets moved to 12 weeks, I mean, I'm hoping that it gets there. But, at the same time, as we mentioned, it's the states. So no guarantees.
Yeah, exactly. No, I couldn't agree more with you. I do hope the weeks get extended, if anything, and does get banned overall. So
Yeah.
here's to hoping for a brighter future for women. We'll continue fighting out there. And yeah, so we'd like to hear from you guys, your thoughts, your opinions. Maybe you have other ways on how Raman and I, can help on our platform. So please
Mhm.
do let us know. Thank you once again, guys, for tuning in and being aware and being in the know with us. I know this was a little more controversial than it usually is, but it needed to be said and done. Otherwise, thanks so much for joining us. If you're not already following us on Instagram, please do at Level Up with Raman and Alysha. And if you like to email us, please do at ramanandalysha@gmail.com.
Absolutely, everyone. And let's keep standing up for women.
Go, girls, go.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.